Welcome to another edition of whatever the hell this is. Today I'm going to talk about the rarest Star Wars action figure ever. Or, actually it's not the rarest, because the rarest is going to be some prototype of something that was never made. But this is actually going to be the action figure, the one action figure I can think of that Star Wars is never going to make again. That Disney's never going to re-release. Lucas is never going to re-release this thing. And I'm not here to talk about any type of, investment. I'm not wise like this guy to talk about those things, although he's really poor, but he's really wise. So now I guess you wouldn't talk to him about investments anyways. But it's one action figure that they will never, ever release again because it simply doesn't exist anymore. And, before we get into that, let's give a little bit of history. For years now, there have sort of been banned action figures in the Star Wars universe, or action figures that are rare, that they didn't release for whatever reason, but all of these end up getting re-released. First case in point, and actually this isn't in chronological order, but this thing here, Slave Leia, all right? They made a ton of these things, those 6-inch, and this is the 3 3/4 Power of the Force Slave Leia. In Slave Leia, because women were sort of, cosplaying as her, and she became known as Sexy Leia or Gold Bikini Leia. They were just doing so much of it, and Disney wanted to sort of keep Star Wars as a squeaky clean image, so they said, hey, we're never going to make this action figure again. So there was a run up on these things. I mean, this thing was costing like $45, but this thing was a peg warmer back in the day. And by peg warmer, that means it's those action figures that just sort of sit there on the shelves and nobody buys them, but for all of a sudden there was a fire sale on these things. No, not a fire sale, the opposite of a fire sale, I guess an ice sale, where people were charging through the nose for these things because Disney was like, well, we don't like exploiting women, and the name of this thing, and we don't over-sexualize, and we got a new movie coming out, and it's a strong female character, so we don't want submissive women being glorified in our action figures. So Slave Leia was discontinued, but I think they've even made another Slave Leia since then, and the prices have come down because I guess they realize Rey and Slave Leia can exist in the same universe, and one doesn't necessarily demean the other. But that's just first example. Okay, second example, our good friend Boba Fett had this rocket firing backpack, and for years it was supposed to be this giveaway, and I don't know, some kid choked on it, or they couldn't get the thing down. So the rocket firing Boba Fett became sort of this mythological toy. It's sort of like the uncle that worked at Nintendo. It's this mythological thing that nobody could really find, and somebody knew someone that had one. And then lo and behold, it's actually not from that long ago. This is probably from like 2018. It's old school styled Boba Fett with, fearsome interplanetary bounty hunter, threat to the rebel existence, new character in Star Wars Empire Strikes Back. It's got the Kenner logo on it. This thing is, I think, from maybe 2016, 2017, maybe 2015. I'm getting old. I don't know. Again, I'm near Social Security age. This thing was eventually re-released. Now, before you argue, hey, this isn't the real one, because there's the original one on there, but I mean, this looks damn close. If I time traveled back to 1982 or whenever the heck, Empire came back, and I showed somebody this, it would just blow their mind. And even if you look at the tech they use behind it, that's a very doable tech at the time. So, yes, I don't have a rocket firing Boba Fett, but if I stare at this stupid thing long enough, I can convince myself that this is actually it. And this is actually part of a mail away for, if you bought enough proof of purchases or whatever, you could get this thing in the mail from Kenner/Hasbro. So even the rarest of the rare, which would be the missile firing Boba Fett, I can get some type of facsimile, some type of thing that would satiate my desire to have this and have fun with it. So that still exists. Let's get to even weirder stuff. I mean, Star Wars Celebration. I think Celebration 3, the one in Indianapolis. Yorg Sackle, okay? If anyone can't tell what the hell Yorg Sackle is, just shut the damn thing off now, because it's obviously George Lucas backwards. And, well, wow, that's neat. But you can see Disney re-releasing this thing, at some point. And George Lucas, unless he unless there's some giant scandal where he, molests 100 babies, they're probably going to re-release this figure or some facsimile of it, or never ban it or not break the molds, etc. So, but sort of Celebration 2. It's right there on the box. Reading is fundamental, kids. All right. Last but not least, I mean, the old Star Wars figures went for a ton, and this was actually the first re-release of the old Star Wars figures. Power of the Force. Now, Power of the Force gets a lot of crap because it's sort of, when Lucas was at his most exploitative of the Star Wars franchise. But you can see here, we got these guys, right? So you thought these guys would never see the light of day again. But here they are. And you could actually, somewhat unbox these things, somewhat pretend you're whatever the hell age Star Wars was when it came out, and sort of have fun with that. So even these old guys get re-released. Just as recently as last year, they had the classic line, which had these in the original packaging. They put a giant sticker on it, though, so it wouldn't fool people, into thinking this was some, vintage toy that was sort of came back from the dead. But, as you can see here, I mean, this is interesting. This is from that 90s, so this is from the re-release. They were selling these damn things to make up money, probably to fund the beloved, prequel trilogy. The interesting part, too, is that, Marvel didn't have the rights, had Dark Horse, but these are clearly Marvel-inspired action figures in the sense that they're just absolutely swole. I mean, look at that. I mean, Luke is just swole. You wouldn't mess with Luke. I mean, even Chewie. Chewie somehow has muscles under fur that he can somehow, flex. I have no idea. I'm surprised. I'm surprised R2-D2 isn't jacked at this point either, or C-3PO. Heck, C-3PO's even got like a little, V-neck thing here. But Princess Leia, again, her face is much to be desired, but they did augment the rest of her. I like to think of this as sort of a tribute to that original Star Wars poster where Luke was absolutely jacked and Princess Leia was, all Franzetta around his ankle, But, the only one here who should really be jacked is Vader. You can never have too much of a jacked up Vader. All right, but anyways, rambling. It's already freaking 10 minutes into this damn thing and I haven't shown it to you. So again, just to recap, we won't re-release it because we have Rey, but we will re-release it later when the heat dies down and we realize that people do like this. Oh yeah, rarity, capitalized on nostalgia, never existed, but now it exists. Re-releasing the old same crap that we released, years ago and is now valuable, so there you go. And, weird tribute figures to guys that really weren't in the thing, but, contributed to it. So, what figure could they possibly make, or could possibly be released that will never be released ever again? You're probably thinking it's something racist or something horrible with a curse word on it, but it's actually this one. Okay, now again, this is probably worth nothing. I'd probably go on eBay and get this thing for 50 cents, but they will never re-release this action figure. It's Anakin Skywalker with lightsaber. And the reason they won't release it is this guy is now completely out of the canon. And unlike, let's say, quote-unquote legacy figures, where you can put a stamp on that and say, hey, this is figures made up of fiction on top of fiction. In other words, characters such as Luke's wife, I can't remember her name now. This thing will never be re-released because this actor no longer plays Anakin Skywalker in Return of the Jedi. This is a likeness of the dude who played Anakin at the end of the original cut of Return of the Jedi. And so you re-release this now, and maybe, some freaking 65-year-old will understand what the heck you're talking about. But, I mean, it's not financially feasible to re-release this action figure. And on top of that, I don't know if in the deal the original editions will ever get re-released. So maybe if they re-release the original theatrical cuts, but at this point that's not even looking likely, you'll see this action figure again. But this thing doesn't exist anymore. And the interesting part is, this was again Power of the Force, the lamented one. This is like the Topps baseball card of the 90s of action figures. A long time ago, a new Star Wars movie will premiere in theaters. I mean, wow. I'm giddy with anticipation. You can see here they have the thing. It's funny how, summing it up, they tried to tell the story of the prequels, but they couldn't give too much detail. So it's like, they bring up who the hell Anakin Skywalker is and fast forward to Empire Strikes Back, and that's basically it. And then these, you can see this is actually, this prior thing was sort of around the re-release of the original trilogies in theater. And, it's sort of built up hype. And you had, jacked up Luke, but five, I think it's around 99, obviously, 98. They sort of toned it down and Luke looks like a normal human being. Still, again, took my advice. There's still jacked up Vader. Chewie's not jacked up, but he actually looks, pretty decent. And then you got Palpatine there with his Force lightning, and R2-D2. They finally had an accessory. But, you know, coming summer 1999. Oh, the ignorance we had back then. Interesting is I think these websites still work. And you're looking, oh, it's in 1998. Websites still work, and you're looking at, you know, what, friggin' 22 years later. Join the official Star Wars fan club. Doesn't exist anymore. Yep. All right. So there he is. Anakin Skywalker. Probably never re-released. Special flashback photo. Look at that. Jake Lloyd. I don't know who this guy is anymore, but Jake Lloyd too. And the interesting thing is, you know, age-wise, this dude's only supposed to be like maybe 40, but you know, those are Force years added to him. You know, like how we saw with Obi-Wan. So, you know, Anakin's like, you know, he's like pushing 60 in this, but by canon, he's really only like maybe 45, maybe, you know, at that. But you know, so there you go.